The 12th year after my rebirth. The first thing I did after leaving the Sierra residence was to visit my grave. From my past life in the wilderness. It stood lonely. As clear as a winter's day. With weeds 3 zhang tall. I added a handful of fresh soil and told myself. Elon. Don't look back. Keep moving forward. I was reborn with the memories of my past life. But now I am a third-class maid in the Sierra residence. Forbidden to approach the master lightly. My former enemies, the Marquis and his wife within these walls, had climbed to their lofty positions by trampling over my bones. Now they lived in opulent splendor. A model couple revered throughout Xinjiang as a heavenly match. It took me a full day to locate the grave from my past life. Unmaintained. It lay in utter ruin. Last night's downpour had washed away the soil, revealing a corner of rotting straw mats. The former wife of the top imperial scholar, a third-rank noble lady, had not even been granted a proper coffin after death, let alone an epitaph. Only a decaying wooden plaque remained, faintly inscribed, wife of Xiaixing. Xiaixing was my former husband. That year, I was 15. In the bloom of youth, I was a street-roaming makeup artist, capable of transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. I could blend hibiscus red rouge with pear blossom white powder, adorn black hair with pear blossoms, and style a bun into the shape of a peony. But whose eyes were blinded by the glint of silver? One afternoon, as thugs blocked my path, raising iron rods to cripple my hands, a hero descended from the heavens, Xiaixing. He stood before me. The thud of metal striking flesh. The pounding of my heart as he dragged me from east to west across the city, that afternoon stretched endlessly. Bit by bit. Burying the rest of my life. Later I learned he was a poor scholar who wrote letters for hire in the southern part of town. That day, my injuries cost 7 cash for medicine, his earnings for 2 days. Yet he never complained. We met more and more often. Both from the orphanage. Both orphaned, both harboring ambition. Both unwilling to be beneath others. In him, I saw another half of myself. Tasting for the first time the bonds of family. When the county bully overturned Xiaixing's stall, I lured him with honey to sting him. Only to end up stung myself. My head covered in welts. I helped the courtesan mother remove her registration. On the second day after she married a merchant from afar, she repaid kindness with betrayal, sending thugs to set fire to my eaves. Thick smoke billowed relentlessly. A falling beam struck my leg. Terrified, I froze until Xiaixing, ignoring pleas, charged into the flames and carried me out. Warmth. Burning heat. The moment I lay upon his back, all fear vanished. I slept deeply, sweetly. From humble beginnings, a bond forged through shared hardship blossomed. Lips brushed against his ear, sparking an indescribable love, utterly devoted and pure. Xiaixing, close your stall. I'll support you through the imperial exams. On stage, the lament of Du Shernyan echoed again and again. How many had warned me, scholars are fickle. Little makeup girl, if your husband passes the exams, how could he remember his wife of humble beginnings? I gambled and won, then lost. At 20, Xiaixing had nothing left but his true heart. He passed the provincial exams. Selected before the throne, black hair, crimson lips, eyes like bright stars. When he raised or lowered his gaze, long lashes cast a layer of bewitching shadow. Princess Zhaohua, passing by, fell in love at first sight. Thus, among 100 scholars, she exceptionally nominated him as the top scholar. But the top scholar refused to marry the princess, refused to become the emperor's son-in-law. His heart belonged only to Song Alan. The day I entered the capital was also the day I left it. As we rode through the streets amid the scholars' boisterous Jolene banquet, everyone sighed. Their gazes upon us. Some looked down with pity, others with schadenfreude. After all, who didn't know? Exiled to Lingnan. This top scholar's career had ended before it even began. Yet Xiaixing clasped my shoulders tightly, oblivious to the surging crowd. As the spring rain fell steadily, he tilted his head, raising a bamboo-wood parasol over me. His jet-black hair swept aside, his fair complexion glistening with a soft radiance. A faint smile touched his lips. This journey stretches far and wide, with no set return date, through rugged mountains and treacherous waters. My lady, would you accompany me? This scene has stayed with me for many years. Back then, I answered, yes. Through life and death, I shall not betray you. Later, we traversed 10 miles of deadly miasma, evaded the pursuit of indigenous tribes, shared a single handful of water in a mountain cave, and faced petitions from 10,000 people at the county office gate. When did things change? When all his former colleagues rose to become unreachable figures of admiration, leaving him alone to waste away his years on the southern frontier. Back then, he defied the sage's will to choose me. What a noble act. Trampling imperial authority underfoot. It drew gasps and admiration, making him the center of attention. But now, though the setting remains, the people have changed. As the gaze gradually faded, he realized what he truly desired was glory. Especially me, his wife. A woman growing increasingly swarthy and coarse in speech, whose days revolved solely around food and household chores. Xiaixing wondered, was this truly the life he had desired? I never learned how he connected with the newly widowed princess, nor how long their secret correspondence lasted. By the time everything came to light, it was already too late. That year, Xiaixing, 26, returned to the capital he had long left behind. When he brought me back from Lingnan, the princess had already taken up residence in his mansion. He said we were merely a youthful folly, that he saw me only as a sister, and offered a divorce decree, a clean break. That I raged, I protested, but no one would hear me. The princess was the emperor's own sister, cherished like the apple of his eye. In the end, even my longtime nanny urged me, "Madam, just let it go." They openly flirted right under my nose. As if that weren't enough, the princess wore my clothes, lay on my bed, and cooed sweet nothings to my husband. Which of us is fairer? She asked, separated only by a wall. I was pinned down by her guards, forced to listen to their debauchery all night long. The hatred that day nearly drowned me. I refused to accept this. I would fight them to the bitter end, no matter the cost. I was about to draft a petition to bring this before the Empress Dowager, yet on the eve of my departure, my husband drowned me in a pig cage. They falsely accused me of adultery and moral corruption, claiming my death was well-deserved. The icy river rose to my eyes, and barely 7 days after my death, Xiaixing married the princess. She couldn't wait. Her pregnancy was becoming impossible to hide. Reborn with the memories of my wrongful death. My new name was ACI, born in a remote fishing village hundreds of miles from the capital. This life, I had parents. Mother made delicious meatballs of every kind. Father always saved the plumpest fish from his sea trips. When the oil sizzled in the pan, the crackling sound and aroma filled our ramshackle hut. Back then, I was still trapped in the past, consumed by hatred. Though 5 years old, I scarcely spoke. The Xiaoguo road passes were strictly enforced. 1,000-foot distance was a chasm the poor could never cross in a lifetime. In the fishing village, even the most respected private tutor had only ventured to the county seat twice to take exams. How much less so for a girl like me? My enemies might grow rich and live out their days in comfort, hidden from my sight. The thought made me so furious I could eat 2 fish. But my parents were kind. They truly loved me. When village children threw stones at me, calling me fool, Mother would chase them 10 miles with her rolling pin, then stand at the village entrance, hands on hips, bellowing at their mother. Whenever Father returned, he'd mimic the village opera clown's grimaces and make flower-pinching gestures to make me laugh. He'd hoist me onto his shoulders, parading me through the village and beyond. Whenever he met someone, he'd boast proudly, "Old Li, look at my daughter, isn't she lovely?" Then there's my name, Jiang Ci. We paid several silver coins to the private tutor to choose it. I remember how happy Father was then, stroking his head and laughing. Porcelain. You know, a precious treasure. Perfect. Perfect. Fits my daughter just right. Truth is, I had truly accepted my fate. On my 9th birthday, Father pressed a new hair ribbon under my pillow with trembling hands. Mother, after much preparation, made me a new dress, stitched with dense, meticulous stitches, stained with blood from her pricked finger while sewing by lamplight. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. Only after they left did I curl up and stare at the beams of the house over and over. I must admit, I felt the heart suspended high in my chest for so long slowly settling back into place. It was still too tender to bear the love and hatred of a lifetime. Perhaps this was it. Heaven itself felt I had suffered long enough. So it granted me a new life, allowing my soul to cease its wandering. The next morning, I combed my own hair and sat upon the table. Father, Mother, heavens. My voice was soft, as if water could be squeezed from it. How long had it been since I last indulged in such childish whimsy? I imagined the warmth of a hand on my forehead, the gentle praise, the rising smoke from the kitchen fire, the joyful breakfast. None of it happened. My parents were dead, just a wall away. Slaughtered by someone. To hide their daughter inside, they didn't even cry out, and during this time the only strangers in the village were a group of pearl merchants. They had already departed by dawn. The villagers, pitying me, offered to bury my parents, but when the time came to lower them into the earth, I was nowhere to be found. I had returned to my room long before, gathered my belongings, tied them into a small bundle, and hidden myself behind an ox cart heading into town to report the crime. The county magistrate took it seriously at first, but after summoning the merchants to court, the matter was swept under the rug, because they worked for the Marquis's household. Princess Xiaohua, growing old and fading in beauty, feared her affection would wane. Xiaixing, with his fine bone structure and solid achievements, was in his prime at 30-something. The swarming admirers were impossible to keep at bay. So she turned to an ancient remedy, 2 cups daily of ground pearl powder, both drunk and applied to nourish her complexion. After a long search, I finally found that group at the largest inn in the neighboring county. They had reserved the main hall for drinking, chatting drunkenly about everything under the sun until they turned to my parents. Those 2 old fools, they said. They claimed the harvest was meager this time and wanted to keep it for themselves. Pa, how dare they withhold what the princess desires? That thing. Pearls. My father saved a few each year, saying they'd be part of my dowry someday. After they killed him, unsurprisingly, I found a large box in my mother's wardrobe. It was packed full of heavy, lustrous pearls, top-quality gems, stealing a huge sum of silver on top of that. Naturally, they were delighted. I slipped into the kitchen. I laced their wine repeatedly. It grew rich and potent, packing a fierce punch. Soon, they were slumped drunk across the table. I replaced the inn's incense with my own, expressionless. My gaze lingered on the axes at their waists for a long time. I desperately wanted to grab one and hack them to death, blow by blow, making them taste that agony 1,000-fold. But I dared not. I couldn't cover all the traces. I was too weak. It wasn't my first time killing, but it was the first time I cried. I wept so bitterly, curled up in the gap between the door and the wall, until every last drop of moisture drained from me. When I left the county town, news of people drinking themselves to death spread throughout the city. County officials were going door to door, reading proclamations banning alcohol. I never returned to the small fishing village. The scent of home had already faded. It's better to enjoy the breeze than to sigh over the passing of clear skies. Unfortunately, I understood this truth too late. Fate had already reclaimed its generous exile. Perhaps my very existence was destined for a bitter struggle with the Ho family estate. At first, I hadn't yet charted my course. I could only mingle among the beggars, drifting with the crowd toward the capital's crowded streets in search of sustenance. Until one day, wandering through a village on the outskirts, I saw several children with grass tags pinned to them. They were too weak to survive, so their mothers would cut off a piece of flesh. Du San, the steward of the Marquis's household, picked and chose among them, selecting several girls. I saw a mother clutching her daughter, tears streaming down her face. She knelt and kowtowed, vowing to repay this great kindness with the utmost gratitude. Her daughter, still innocent, smiled softly. Selling me means we'll have money. My little brother won't starve. Mother, I'll save every monthly allowance. In a few years, I'll come back for you. The four of us will live a good life. I don't know what flashed through my mind in that instant, but I stood frozen in place, inexplicably, looking at the weeping women before him. Du San relented. He allowed them to return home to pack, to wash their children clean, and bring them back the next day for unified delivery to the Marquis' residence. I followed behind that mother and daughter for a long time. I heard them cry and laugh and cry, until finally I stepped forward to intervene, wiping the dust from my face. I held out my hand, bearing a round, lustrous pearl that glowed with a milky white radiance. My voice was slightly hoarse. Stop crying. I'll trade places with her, I said. There were over a dozen young girls brought to the Marquis' residence in this batch. All were around 8 or 9 years old. My guess was correct, they were to be bound by indentured contracts to serve in the courtyard of Xiaoyao, the young mistress of the residence. Typically, such noble families wouldn't casually purchase servants from outside. Only those born into the household could be trusted. But Xiaoyao was excessively spoiled. Not only was she the Marquis and Princess's only daughter, she also had an emperor for an uncle. From childhood, she dared to play on the dragon throne, demanding whatever she wanted and getting it all. She grew increasingly arrogant and tyrannical. Months ago, her little red horse broke free from its enclosure. It rampaged through the manor, trampling and mauling indiscriminately. Only when its hooves crushed the leg of a 50-year-old gatekeeper grandmother, whose granddaughter knelt begging for 2 taels to buy medicine, did the commotion cease. All because the girl had accidentally wrinkled Xiaoyao's favorite skirt. Even the servants in the outer courtyard who hadn't managed to stop the horse were punished. Those deserving of caning were caned, those to be sold off were sold off. No one dared utter a word of reproach. Upon hearing this, Princess Zhaohua merely praised. If we lack people, we can always buy them from outside. Yao Yao did right. As a daughter of 1,000 gold coins, how could the lives of those lowly servants compare to a single garment of yours? Now, our group of 14, having studied the rules for a full month, stood in 2 neat rows. We awaited our audience with the young mistress. I glanced up and saw Xiaoyao surrounded by attendants. She wore a pale yellow flowing gown, her hair adorned with jewels and feathers. A single hairpin on her head was worth an estate in the capital's suburbs. The fan she held was a tribute from the western seas, trimmed with pearls and tassels. A phoenix-shaped hair ornament adorned her forehead, making her air even more regal than a princess's. She sat upon a rattan chair carried by servants. After the steward finished his address, her jade-like fingers stretched lazily out, pointing at each maid to bestow a name. In the unwritten customs of the Zhao kingdom, a servant granted a name by their master bore that mark forever. Feng Xia, Xiaohua, Yan'er. As her turn approached, Xiaoyao faltered for a moment. She had inherited not only her father's coldness but, more significantly, her mother's malice, foolishness, and lack of literary refinement. I gently nudged the maid ahead of me, Yan'er, who relied on her strength to bully others behind closed doors, splashing water on every bed. She knelt on the floor, her face drained of color, begging for mercy with endless kowtows. The steward's men dragged her away. Xiaoyao's peripheral vision caught a glimpse of the embroidery on her robe hem, the 4 friends of winter. I've decided on your names. Xiaoyao stood up and walked out. She was a shallow observer, easily distracted by whatever occupied her immediate attention. So among the last 4 maids, I stood second and was granted the name Orchid. Later, when duties were assigned, I was sent to sweep the outer courtyard. I didn't miss the fleeting pity that flashed across the matron's face when she called my name. Everyone in the mansion knew that Princess Zhaohua detested Orchid above all else. She was certain I'd never rise above my station. In fact, she was right. In the 3 years I've been here, I've only seen my master once. It was one autumn when Xiaoxing and the princess had a falling out. He coaxed her all the way to the girls' courtyard, neither of them noticing me bent over sweeping fallen leaves. Why are you jealous again? Yao Yao is grown now, no need to let others mock us. You know I hold only you in my heart. Zhao Hua is like the bright moon, merely drawing near is a lifetime's fortune. Xiaoxing was 35, yet time had not treated him harshly lately. His pampered life only accentuated his noble bearing, like a cup of rich, mellow tea growing more fragrant with age. No wonder the princess was so consumed by jealousy. Though 2 years his junior, wrinkles had already taken root at the corners of her eyes, yet after half a lifetime, she remained a girl at heart. Still believing in sweet nothings, she was quickly soothed. Just then, Xiao fluttered over, sweetly offering her respects. I hid beneath the arched gate, watching them depart warmly. From behind, they truly looked like a harmonious family, but soon they wouldn't be. I lowered my head, inhaling the drifting fragrance of Xian flowers in the breeze, and smiled. I swept the grounds of Xiaoyao's outer courtyard for 4 years, from the garden to the second courtyard gate, 13,700 steps. Leaves fell and fell again. I swept 4 times daily, never complaining. I kept to myself, obediently accepting any task, no matter how difficult or dirty, that was assigned to me. Such behavior naturally endeared me to many servants, some of whom, feeling indebted, spoke well of me. That year, I was 13. Midsummer had just passed when Xiao was chasing butterflies in the rear garden. This garden was filled with rare and exotic plants, all painstakingly gathered from far and wide by the princess, though vibrant and colorful. Even such beauty could grow tiresome with prolonged viewing. Until a butterfly alighted on a cluster of wild jasmine. Tiny and fragrant. It possessed an elegance Xiao had never encountered before. I knew well that a girl spoiled by such pampering would be particularly drawn to novelty. Sure enough, when the blame came down, it landed squarely on my shoulders. Panic filled my eyes as I bowed my head repeatedly. Those flowers were not planted by the servant. They were seeds mixed in with the seedlings the craftsman brought in spring. They sprouted later, and no one tended to them. This servant merely watered them. Xiao waved her hand to cut me off. She seemed in a very good mood. She asked who I was, then graciously permitted me to enter her courtyard to serve her. At first, I tended the flowers and plants, rarely allowed near her. But later, I filled a vacancy and accompanied Xiao to pay respects to the princess. Zhao Hua immediately spotted the unfamiliar face among the attendants, lazily skimming the tea foam. Where did this maid come from? Never seen her by Yao Yao's side before. Lift your head. What's your name? Orchid. I knew, in that instant, how her anger blazed like wildfire, engulfing her heart, smashing her teacup to the floor. The princess shrieked. That name is unlucky. Change it. Anyone bearing the character Orchid deserves death. Change it now. Xiao was terrified by her fury. Those sordid deeds from her youth, no one dared mention them before this delicate young lady. Kneeling on the floor, shards piercing my calf, blood seeping through my skirt. I kept my head bowed low, yet my voice remained neither humble nor defiant. This name was bestowed by the young lady herself, embodying what her master once saw. If you wish to change it, please bestow a new name upon me. A heavy silence hung in the air, the foreboding calm before the storm. Just then, the guard captain, who owed me a favor, brought Xiaoxing as promised. He lowered his gaze, surveying the chaos on the floor. His brow furrowed slightly as he extinguished a smoldering ember with his finger. It's just a name. If the girl likes it, let her call herself whatever she pleases. Then he approached the princess, lowering his voice. I read his faintly moving lips. Enough. Zhao Hua. If you keep this up, do you want Yao to ask why? That day, it ended with me kneeling on the porcelain shards for 2 hours. That evening, Xiao summoned me to attend her in her chambers. My legs had gone numb, unable to support my weight. My steps were unsteady, yet my devotion burned fiercely. She asked, Orchid, when mother spoke of renaming you, why did you mention only me, and not respond to her? I am the young mistress's servant. I said, The matron taught me only to be loyal to my master. I must place the young mistress above all else. Xia Yao smiled softly, her gaze flickering. She bestowed upon me a box of precious healing medicine. Costly indeed. She also ordered me to attend her closely. Princess Zhaohua had remained childless for half her life. Now, bearing a child at such an advanced age proved arduous. With only this daughter to cherish, she showered her with boundless affection, yet her possessive control bordered on madness. It extended to restricting Xia Yao's movements and dictating the attire of her attendants. Gradually, this bond grew complex. Xia Yao felt both drawn to it and suffocated by it. Occasionally, she would stare blankly at the sky above, fantasizing about the bustling world beyond the palace walls. In her rebellious youth, I was the one who made her feel, for the first time, that she had someone truly on her side. But that was far from enough. Over the next year, I elevated myself to the position of Xia Yao's most trusted confidant. I always anticipated her desires, doing what she dared not. I smuggled forbidden books from the marketplace for her. When she disliked lessons, I devised ways to dismiss the tutors. She grew increasingly appreciative of my loyalty, occasionally confiding in me about the princess's oppressive demands. Mother is too much. I clearly prefer pink. Today she insisted I wear purple. Even the hairpins were pre-selected, no choice for me. I silently massaged her legs. The princess cares for you. You know. I knew these words would reach Xiaohua's ears. Truthfully, she tried to kill me several times, falsely accusing me of theft, threatening to sell me to a brothel, throwing me into the torture chamber, or simply withholding my monthly allowance and starving me. But my will to live was stubbornly strong. I always managed to survive. Once, when she was torturing me, Xia Jing walked in. That day, blood splattered all over her face, making her look hideous like a demon. The Marquis didn't share her bed for days afterward. After that, she stopped tormenting me. When she realized I never showed any sign of the harsh treatment I endured in front of others, she began bossing me around with condescending instructions. Enough. Yao's grown now. It's not worth damaging our mother-daughter bond over you. If she wants a pet for amusement, this mother of hers will grant it. I don't believe you could ever escape my grasp anyway. Back then, the princess didn't know how I secretly encouraged her precious daughter to skip lessons, fostering her spoiled and contemptuous ways. She had no idea what I would do to Xia Yao next. This year marked Xia Yao's coming-of-age ceremony. After drinking a little wine, she vented her frustration by pricking 2 maidservants with needles. By the time I finished attending to her ablutions, it was late. Outside, the moon's clear radiance bathed the world, as bright as when I died in my previous life, or when my parents passed away. I returned to my own room. From a hidden crevice, I retrieved specially crafted stationery, its surface faintly scented. Lowering my gaze, I wrote in silence. Long have I yearned for you, tossing and turning, sleepless through the night. As I prepare to depart, meet me at dusk by the Yuanli Pavilion. There, I shall pour out my longing. 2 letters in total, each written in the distinct voice of a man and a woman. No one in the home mansion knew I could write, let alone produce 2 entirely different handwritings. The ink had dried. I blew gently on the letters, carefully tucked them away, and a smile curved my lips. That day, Princess Zhaohua visited the young lady's boudoir. She personally selected her attire and makeup. I stood silently outside the door, watching Xia Yao throw a tantrum, the princess slap her, then offer sweet words, ultimately forcing her to nod in agreement. Xia Yao is 14 now. Yesterday's banquet was to arrange her marriage. Today she must dress in her finest to meet an older gentleman, the imperial secretary of the Wang family. This matter traces back some time. The current emperor is not the Empress Dowager's biological son, by bloodline. They are as distant as the eighth heaven. When the previous emperor passed without an heir, the Empress Dowager exerted immense pressure on the court officials. Ultimately, she selected a young prince from the imperial clan to ascend the throne. Thus, while Princess Zhaohua holds the title of the emperor's sister, her highest noble rank remains that of a princess. A quid pro quo. When this brother and sister held no power, they heeded the Empress Dowager's every word. They coaxed her into relinquishing a small portion of her authority and even arranged a marriage between the princess and the Wang family, the Empress Dowager's maternal clan. But the subsequent course of events was all too predictable. Once their wings grew strong, they no longer needed their mother. Though Zhaohua married into the Wang family, barely half a month after her husband's death, she became involved with Xia Zheng, the former top scholar. This deeply embarrassed the Empress Dowager. Yet Xia Zheng proved no mere ornament. His political achievements earned him the title of Marquis. He also adopted an excessively humble demeanor, insisting on dragging Zhaohua to kneel all day in Xinaying Palace during every festival. Reluctantly, she had to swallow her pride and accept it. Years passed. On the surface, peace prevailed, but this matter remained a thorn in the side. As luck would have it, the new head of the Wang family's eldest branch, the Empress Dowager's own great-nephew, had once caught sight of Xia Yao. The wind had swept aside her veil, revealing a breathtaking glimpse beneath the moonlight. Love had blossomed freely from that moment. This presented a golden opportunity to turn the Empress Dowager's faction against her. Xia Zheng refused to let it go. Zhaohua, weighing the Wang family's generations of wealth and the eldest branch's reputation for grace and charm, orchestrated this arranged meeting. No one could have foreseen. Xia Yao already had someone in her heart. She wore sumptuous brocades and satins, her hair meticulously coiled into intricate styles, adorned with jade and turquoise ornaments. Yet she returned looking dejected. Only when she felt the letter tucked in the window crack did a genuine smile appear. Lan Hua. I wasn't here today. Did anyone come? I shook my head, no one. Then I thought for a moment and added, only Xinger, the young master's maid, came asking for some sewing supplies. It was him. I knew it. I just knew it. Her expression shifted repeatedly, her lips struggling to suppress a smile. Finally, she pressed the letter to her chest, twirled around several times, then tugged my ear and solemnly warned me not to breathe a word of this to anyone. I nodded, and I couldn't help but smile too. The young lady finally smiled. Though I didn't know why, Lan Hua was genuinely happy for her. That day, Xia Yao returned very late. Her clothes were still stained with grass leaves. While she was away, the confidant the princess had placed here came several times, but I managed to handle them all. The young lady praised me for doing well. From then on, helping her conceal her whereabouts became another part of my job, and the frequency only increased. Xia Yao no longer resisted meeting with the Wang family's young master, but she always took a bodyguard along, to prevent gossip. She even brought me along, even on the day of their courtship, the summer night of the cicadas chorus. When they pledged their love under the lanterns, there were 4 of them. The young master of the Wang family didn't show it on his face, but he hinted gently, Yao Yao, the river cruise is in a small boat. It might not hold all of us. Xia Yao shot back. Then go by yourself. I'm leaving now. A daughter of a wealthy family doesn't stand by a crumbling wall. What's wrong with bringing some attendants? In the end, they had to switch to a larger boat. The river was dotted with countless lanterns floating by, each carrying the wishes of eligible young men and women. They shone like countless stars, filling the air with unspoken intimacy. As the light and shadow descended, Xia Yao stood close to her guard. Her gaze was gentle, softer than it had ever been. Those unaware might have thought they were the couple. Young Master Wang felt a pang of jealousy. while Xia Yao dragged her guard to the deck to hang decorations. He tried every trick to pry the man's identity from me. I kept a smile, deflecting his questions with diplomatic evasion. His name is Su Sixing. After the Marquis gained influence, he brought him in, a son from a cousin's family. He now serves in the manor. With that familial connection, he's reliable to employ. Young master, please don't overthink it. After all, your marriage to the young lady only awaits the Empress Dowager's decree. The Marquis's household has strict rules. The princess has also stated that until everything is settled, you two must not be allowed to get too close. That's why she personally assigned me to follow behind you. I know your feelings for the young lady are genuine, but in the kingdom of Zhao, appearances matter. Without proper recognition, words hold no weight. A woman's virtue is of utmost importance. A deep contemplation flickered in Prince Wang's eyes. As expected, within 3 days, the Empress Dowager's imperial decree granting the marriage arrived at the Marquis's residence. While some rejoiced, others grieved. Outside the mansion, Xiaxing walked with his head held high, while inside, Xia Yao's eyes burned red. She smashed countless precious porcelain pieces, her beautiful face contorted with fury. She took her anger out on everyone, even slapping me twice. According to Zhao Kingdom custom, noble brides need not embroider their wedding gowns before marriage, but they must prepare a pair of shoes for the groom. Locked in the embroidery tower for over half a month, she grew increasingly erratic. Across the 2-story pavilion, hundreds of servants trembled in fear. One day, she struck me. She reached to touch my face again, her gaze lingering blankly in midair. So lost in thought she didn't even notice the ointment she'd shoved into my nostril. She murmured softly, "Where is he? I wonder how he's doing. He's probably more anxious than you are. You little fool." Su Sixing had been lodged in the home mansion 5 years prior. I'd seen types like him before, perhaps initially bearing the natural innocence of youth. But within years, they'd be utterly consumed by the capital's opulence. Especially with that blood running through his veins. Sharing the same ancestry as Xiaxing, utterly cold-hearted. He had saved Xia Yao once. Only he had forgotten it himself. Back then, before he'd been steeped in the Marquis's corrupting influence, he still possessed a handsome face. As Xia Yao swung wildly on the swing frame, about to smash her head open, he reached out and pulled her back. A teenager in his teens. His eyes clear and pure, melting the sunlight, he looked down at her, concern evident, and offered a handkerchief. What hadn't Xia Yao seen? Treasures she'd received were piled high as mountains, yet that handkerchief, carrying a faint scent of soapberry, was accepted by her with solemn reverence. It was placed in a lacquered gold box, suspended in the air. It was an enduring dream, alas, long before she knew it. The boy she cherished had already changed beyond recognition. The home mansion wasn't exactly cruel to Su Sihong, but it wasn't kind either. Among the hundreds of servants, many were lowly and opportunistic. Encountering such people was nothing short of a nightmare. I witnessed him being called a parasite, saw him bow his head in humiliation to beg for a scrap of herbal medicine, and observed him scavenging lotus roots from the pond to fill his empty stomach. The youth stood in autumn, his robe sleeves patched upon patched, even his hair strands revealing a sense of desolation. I handed him a steamed bun, and we sat together on the abandoned steps. He guessed my identity. He cried clumsily, wanting to use me as a tool to punish the wicked servants. I pretended not to understand. I comforted him endlessly. Never despise a poor youth. Though these times may be dark, they will pass. Beyond the willows, flowers bloom anew. I heard it from the old servants in the mansion. Look at the Marquis now, living in splendor. Didn't he too endure a time of hardship? I realized I'd spoken too soon. I shook my head hastily. Oh, I was just rambling. Our master's affairs are not for us to gossip about. Don't take it to heart, hear it and forget it. You absolutely must take it to heart. Su Sixing didn't disappoint me. He began investigating the details of Xiaxing's rise to power, though his methods were a bit crude, requiring me to clean up the loose ends. Finally, from an elder, I heard the whole story. A man who wanted to seize the throne. He wouldn't dwell on how cruel the story was, how innocent Alan was, or how fickle human hearts could be. All he'd think was, why him and not me? If he can do it, So can I. I'm no worse than him. After that, he began making frequent appearances before the Marquis and his wife, trying every trick to befriend noble ladies. But he didn't dare set his sights on Xiaoyao until that letter arrived. To him, it was manna from heaven. Su Sixing swore he would climb this ladder to the clouds at any cost, using every trick in his arsenal to charm Xiaoyao. He rehearsed each meeting countless times beforehand. A young girl just coming of age, untouched by the world, easy to win over. Wasn't she? That marriage decree shattered everything. But this was merely the first step in my plan. The next move would truly corner the tiger. When Xiaoyao was forcibly made to take the shoe sole, a minor incident occurred at the Marquis's residence. A guard was dismissed. The jade pendant stolen from the treasure pavilion he was guarding was found under his bed. He could not remain any longer. Only because of their distant kinship did the steward give him extra silver, allowing him to stay until after the young lady's wedding banquet before departing. I knew the time had come. That evening, Xiaoyao summoned me to her boudoir, asking me to help her elope. I was reluctant, shaking my head like a rattle. I protested. Young lady, this is the husband chosen for you by the princess. She poured so much effort into this. If you run away like this, she'll be heartbroken. She didn't mention the gravity of defying an arranged marriage, only shifting the blame onto Zhao Hua. Xiaoyao was furious. She recalled the 14 years of her life spent under control, even deprived of eating her favorite pastries. In that moment, the last remnants of her hesitation vanished. A twisted sense of pleasure welled up inside her. She couldn't wait to see the look of grief and fury on her mother's face. She struck me, then embraced me. Her eyes reddened from holding back tears. Orchid, you promised to be loyal to me forever. Could you bear to see me marry someone who doesn't love me at all? Mother would never consider my feelings. Only you can help me now. I know your makeup skills are excellent. Didn't you disguise yourself like this to deceive the nanny last time? We're in this together. I'm the young miss, you must obey me. I stayed with her as she cried for a while. Then I sighed and said, all right. But they couldn't get far. Barely 10 miles from the estate. Before they could even take a breath of freedom, they stumbled upon the Marquis and Prince Wang pacing and discussing matters. In full view of everyone, Xiaoyao's hand clasped Su Sihong's. The bundle rolled to the ground. A large sum of gold and silver spilled out. Later, 2 crimson undershirts were found on Su Sihong's person. They belonged to the young mistress. Xiaoyao pondered and pondered. She couldn't understand how, with so few people knowing about this affair, it could have been exposed so quickly. She had even suspected me, but quickly dismissed it. It couldn't be possible. Everyone knew I was her most loyal dog. And I hadn't done much. Merely suggested they change the time, and advised Prince Wang that discussing wedding details personally with the Marquis after court each day would please the young lady more. This affair had blown far out of proportion. The relationship between the Marquis's household and the Empress Dowager's faction, which had barely begun to thaw, had plunged back to freezing point. Xia Zhang's fury was unprecedented. So unfamiliar. So terrifying. Xiaoyao's face drained of color as she huddled behind Su Sixing. They were both kneeling in the ancestral hall, facing imminent punishment by family law. 70 lashes. Su Sihong didn't grasp the gravity of his offense. He'd clung to the belief that enduring this would bring dawn. That the Marquis and Princess would eventually grudgingly accept the son-in-law, just as they had years ago. After all, the entire capital was watching. So he continued his performance, layering sincerity and pretense until even he couldn't tell them apart. The bamboo whip tore into his skin. A single swing could strip away layers of flesh. His last remaining undergarment was stained crimson. At first, he stuffed his hands into his mouth, forcing himself to remain silent, trying to act like a man. Later, his hands were bitten raw, every inch of skin torn. Blood surged from his entire body, and his screams finally escaped. Yet he proved himself a man of character. In the fleeting moments when death seemed imminent, he still managed to summon a shred of sanity. He shouted toward Xia Yao, his voice hoarse and strained. "Yao Yao, don't be afraid. It will end soon." I knelt beside Xia Yao, supporting her limp body. I knew better than anyone that this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. When Princess Zhaohua arrived, the 70 lashes had just concluded. The bloodied figure writhing on the ground was barely recognizable. Yet this did nothing to dampen her fury. She'd just been dragged out by the Empress Dowager to be lectured on propriety, bombarded with a barrage of veiled insults, a humiliation she hadn't endured in years. That long-simmering fury finally erupted in this moment. "Why have you all stopped? Beat this vile creature who seduced the young lady to death. Drag the corpse out to feed the dogs." She meant every word. "No, don't!" Two cries rang out simultaneously. Su Sixing's voice was low, drowned out by Xia Yao's struggles. So only I heard him whisper, "I regret it." But it was too late. Wasn't it? On the eve of delivering the letter, I had given him a chance. Back then, the niece of a 6th-rank court official had been bewitched by his looks and sent him rice cakes she'd made herself as a token of affection. Her family background wasn't distinguished, but her features were well-proportioned. By any measure, she was more than suitable for Su Sixing, an orphaned, penniless youth who'd come to the capital seeking relatives. But his tastes had grown spoiled. Bearing the title of a marquis's household for too long, he developed the delusion that he himself was royalty. When I personally delivered the rice cakes, he took a half-step back, failing to conceal his disdain. He affected a gentlemanly demeanor. "Tell Miss Li that flowing water knows no mercy. Spring splendor is at its peak, let her blossom upon another branch." And those meticulously prepared rice cakes? Their final resting place was the pond. Fish swarmed, snapping at them, vying to swallow them whole. This path was Su Sixing's choice. He had spoken it himself, "I'd gladly die for wealth and honor." Now, he had found his due. "Mother! No! Stop them! Stop them! I beg you!" Xia Yao's pleas echoed. She crawled on her knees, grasping vainly at the princess's skirt, then threw herself toward the place of punishment. Naively, she still believed herself the untouchable darling of her parents, that her tears would win their mercy and consent. But no, the cane still cracked Su Sihong's skull, right before her eyes. The splattered red and white fluid, still steaming, drenched Xia Yao. She screamed, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. But her father was no longer the father she knew. He scooped a ladle of cold water and splashed it on her face, forcing her awake. He wouldn't let her escape, compelling her to confront the tangled emotions churning within her, the weight of oppression that came with long-held power. Xiaixing narrowed his brows, his gaze fierce as a demon. "When did this begin? How did you conceal it from the entire household? How far has it progressed? Speak!" His merciless interrogation pressed down like a mountain. It crushed any lingering resentment in Xia Yao's heart to dust. She suddenly recalled her father's former position at the Supreme Court of Justice, where he was known as the jade-faced Lord of Hell. Panic surged through her. Like a frightened young animal, she darted around, casting a pleading glance toward the princess. But her mother offered no response. Only a cold, evasive look. Xiaixing stepped closer, lifting her chin. His face remained expressionless as he spoke lightly. Silence. "Yao Yao, do you also wish to taste the whip?" A quarter of an hour earlier, that bloody scene flooded back into her mind. She nearly vomited. Terrified. Utterly terrified. Only when she saw Xiaixing truly raise that blood-soaked whip, its sharp crack echoing through the air, did she instinctively curl into a ball and scream? Orchid. It was Orchid. It was all her fault. She delivered the letter to me. She distracted the guards for me. She urged me to flee alone. I feigned shock and bewilderment. Just as I was about to kneel and plead my innocence. My words froze in my throat when I met Xiaoyao's tear-filled eyes. Finally, I said, "It was me." As I was dragged to the private dungeon, passing Xiaoyao in that fleeting moment, I whispered softly, audible only to her, "Miss, you may pin everything on me. I'll never betray you, even in death. But night brings many dreams. Those letters in your room, burn them while no one's watching." She dared not meet my eyes, so she didn't notice the faint curve of my lips. "You must burn those letters, miss. They carry my specially blended scent, refreshing and uplifting when inhaled. Yet upon burning, they reveal a wholly different nature. They draw out the darkest emotions within a person, pushing them to extremes, lingering for months without dissipating. Something interesting is about to happen. While I endured whippings at the torture pillar, forced to extract confessions, changes unfolded both within and outside the home mansion. Externally, the faction led by the Empress Dowager, spearheaded by the Wang family, struck back within the imperial court. The long-standing friction between the emperor and empress factions had only maintained a fragile surface peace. Now, ignited by this spark, the old accounts buried beneath the iceberg inevitably resurfaced. In a mere half-month, a wave of purges swept through the capital, decimating officials. Everyone lived in fear, terrified of being sucked into the vortex of chaos, where even their bones might be crushed, and the center of this whirlpool was undoubtedly the Marquis's residence. Both husband and wife were overwhelmed. Xiaoxing, a pillar of the emperor's faction, bore the brunt of the attacks. His disciples and old associates were severely affected. Official documents piled like mountains on his desk, leaving him no time to attend to anything else. He simply took up residence in the Hall of Containing Excellence, where he worked. Zhao Hua's days were no less difficult. She was the emperor's only blood sister. They had weathered the most trying times of the mansion together, especially when the late empress passed away. On her deathbed, she had repeatedly urged him to look after his sister. That habit took root over time, becoming ingrained in his very blood and bones, reaching the level of instinct. How much the emperor favored Zhao Hua, just a casual remark from her could secure the top scholar position coveted by the aristocratic families for Xiaoxing. But there was a limit. That was the first time he had ever lost his temper with the princess. His thirst for power overrode his instincts. One who had occupied the highest seat for too long could not tolerate falling, for he knew that a fall would mean death without a proper burial, and he had already keenly sensed the first whispers of impending danger. It is true that I have spoiled you beyond measure. You truly are mother and daughter, both daring to trample the Wang family's dignity twice. My nephew and great-nephew are her only blood ties. Must you push things to the point of no return just to satisfy your own pleasure, before things spiral completely out of control? Take Xiaoyao to the entrance of Xinang Palace and kneel there. You are not permitted to rise until the Empress Dowager deigns to see you. The princess sobbed. It's all Zhao Hua's fault. I failed to guide my daughter, letting her act so recklessly. Her head bowed, her nose reddened like a bird's beak holding a flowered. It was somewhat pitiable. This touched the softest part of His Majesty's heart. Ultimately, he couldn't bear it. Sighing, he said, "Just take Yao Yao with you. The lower your posture, the better. Leave the rest to me." With that said, Xiaoyao still didn't want to go. She was being dragged along by the princess. She had just endured the agony of losing her husband. Su Sixing died when she loved him most, and his final act was spectacular. He became the untouchable moonlight in her heart, yet the very person responsible for his death, her mother Zhao Hua, showed no consideration for her pain. Instead, she forced her to parade through the streets, bearing the shame of her crime. Even if she covered her ears, Xiaoyao could still hear the whispers outside. Several noble ladies who bore her ill will mocked. Look at her, the one who eloped before her wedding. She must have committed every incestuous act imaginable. Now she has the nerve to show her face in public. Shameful. If I were her, I'd find a white silk cord and hang myself. They say the Empress Dowager was so enraged she couldn't sleep for nights. Such a disloyal, unfilial person living is a waste. Xiaoyao was young. She didn't know this was the Empress Dowager deliberately striking fear into her, but Zhao Hua breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the curse was spoken aloud, it meant there was still a chance. Those in the political arena are not guided by emotion. The Empress Dowager might be furious, but she hadn't lost her reason. She merely wanted to vent her anger and use this to expand her influence. That day, a joke spread throughout the capital. I grasped a truth early on: 2 or 3 tenths of life's events are beyond our control. But the outcome of the subsequent 7 or 8 tenths can be determined by how we react and handle things. Xia Yao had been intoxicated by the scent for too long. Consumed by grief and fury, she couldn't hear the princess's earnest warnings. In her irrational state, she saw only the image of a cold-hearted mother. She refused to leave the carriage, was slapped twice until she fell, then feigned fainting before the Empress Dowager's hall, a performance so clumsy even the head matron couldn't bear to watch. When she reached the gates of Sinaying Palace, she still couldn't gain entry. In this story, everyone was left disappointed. It wasn't that she hadn't tried to communicate with Xia Yao, but for some reason, the moment she stepped into this courtyard, Princess Zhaohua lost control of her emotions. The daughter she had cherished like the palm of her hand was now timid and withdrawn, only daring to yell at her. Bearing no resemblance to her youthful self, her imperial brother expressed disappointment. And their conversations ended in discord. The cold remarks from Sinaying Palace pierced her like sharp arrows. Even her husband, Xia Zheng, when they met by chance, blamed her for failing to raise their daughter properly. Those grievances felt infinitely magnified. Mother and daughter erupted in another fierce argument. The princess, overcome with emotion, cried out, "I, Li Zhaohua, have been intelligent all my life. How could I have given birth to such a pathetic daughter?" No, this wasn't what she truly felt. Her love for her daughter was genuine, not feigned. She was merely enraged. Xia Yao wept hysterically. "Did I beg you to give birth to me? This incompetence is your doing too. Look back over the past decade. Did you ever give me a choice? You hate me for being your daughter. But little do you know I hate you more for being my mother." Chaos erupted, shattering the hall's antique treasures. Princess Zhaohua swept her sleeves and stormed out. She couldn't comprehend when her cotton-padded jacket had turned black-hearted. She recalled Xia Yao's birth, a tiny, soft bundle that instantly became the most vital part of her existence. But now, this precious treasure, kneaded from the flesh of her and her beloved, had transformed into a sharp blade, each thrust cutting into her most hidden places. But don't worry. This is only the beginning. Porcelain shattered across the floor. Amidst the chaos, the senior maid bandaging Xia Yao's wounds, replacing me, was Xi. I personally promoted her. Note that this was 2 years ago. At the time, Xia Jing had praised the maidservant attending Zhaohua. The princess showed no immediate reaction, but later had that servant drowned in a well. When the body was retrieved, it was bloated and pale, the face slashed beyond recognition. That was Shi's elder sister. They weren't blood-related, yet they were closer than any kin. Later, Shi schemed her way into the Marquis's residence. I discovered her just as she was poisoning the princess's tea. I smashed the cup and promptly replaced it with a fresh one. Ceramic shards cut her palm. Shi lowered her gaze, watching the blood seep out silently, her voice cold and tinged with a fearless weariness. That moment made me realize she wasn't afraid of death. She had long chosen her final resting place. Snow falls again. The day sister found me was also a snowy day. Back then, the towns near the capital suffered a bitter famine, a horror perhaps unknown to maidservants in wealthy households like yours. She lost her sister, I lost my parents. So we clung to each other. 2 souls clinging together to escape that hellish land that devoured its own. She was only 2 years older than me, yet steady as my own mother. She excelled at songs, needlework, nothing was beyond her. Until one day, I found her hiding, crying after burning her hand while cooking. Only then did I realize she'd been putting on an adult facade to keep me at ease. Later, when we came to the capital and discovered there were schools for girls, she insisted on sending me to study. Do you know? Just last month we ate dumplings together. She smiled, saying the Marquis had agreed to let her leave the estate, and she'd saved enough money to buy a house in our hometown. As she spoke these words, her voice was soft and faint. Her eyes weren't red, just another little girl who'd cried herself dry. Now that you've discovered me, caught red-handed with the evidence, I have nothing more to say. Only, the entire estate speaks of your kindness. So I came to beg, after I die, would you throw my body into the mass grave? My sister lies buried there, devoured by wild dogs. I wish to be near her. I looked at her closed eyes. I rose and walked slowly to her side, taking her bleeding hand in mine. Shiji, our great vengeance remains unavenged. Are you truly ready to give up like this? Her eyes snapped open, bewildered. You won't expose me? You won't turn me in for the bounty? Why would I expose you? I don't need that reward. I paused, then added, it's like the dagger hidden in your sleeve, you didn't strike to end my life. There's only the two of us here. If you killed me, it might leave traces, but at least you'd have a sliver of hope. Her body froze. I tore off my sleeve and bandaged the wound on her palm. I paid no heed to the dagger that had flashed from its sheath, though it now pressed against my throat. Her dark lashes trembled as she asked what my intentions were. I told her, truthfully, this world holds genuinely good people, those who, even after enduring pain and malice, struggle to preserve their kindness, refusing to let it sink into the mire. Such souls are rare. You are one of them. It would be a shame to lose you here. So I won't speak of today's events outside these walls, but there is something I wish you would hear. Shishi, killing someone isn't satisfying revenge. True closure comes from watching your enemies slowly lose everything they hold dear. That's a torment crueler than death. So now she's putting my words into action. It's the final push to topple a crumbling edifice. Once it falls, no one will be left to stem the tide. Shishi offered her a cup of tea, with thoughtful obedience. Miss, please drink a little. Xiao took it, sipping slowly, her eyes still red-rimmed. These days, she kept dreaming of Su Hanged. I and those old memories. He was still the noble gentleman. The next moment, blood would stream from his features as he wailed in agony, begging her to save him. She buried her face in her hands, unable to watch, then fled into the distance. Yet at every path's end, she would see her mother's savage, vicious face, an image that grew increasingly indistinguishable from reality. This thought inevitably stirred hatred within her, yet she was powerless to confront it. Closing her eyes in fragility, Mother is forcing me to go to Sinang Palace tomorrow to beg forgiveness. How can she be so righteous after causing Su Xing's death? What should I do? What on earth should I do? If only Orchid were here. She always had the best ideas. The teacup froze midair, suspended in a moment of stunned silence. Then it flew angrily toward Shishi. You're utterly useless, not a shred of help. The cup struck her forehead squarely, gouging a deep wound as blood trickled down her cheek. Shishi didn't even blink. She waited obediently for Xiao to vent her fury before speaking. It is this servant who has failed. Please do not let your anger harm your health. In truth, Sister Orchid has privately confided in me, expressing her grievances on your behalf. To ease tensions between the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. They could have married several of the Wang family's daughters into the palace. His Majesty is unwilling to relinquish the positions of his consorts. Yet he treats your happiness as a joke. You've done nothing wrong. Yet this servant cannot fathom why. With such a simple solution, the princess. In an instant, Shiji's face paled. She hastily knelt on the floor, repeatedly slapping her own face. This servant spoke rashly, daring to gossip about her mistress in private. I truly deserve death. A long silence followed. Finally, a cold, piercing voice came from the bed. Xiao sneered coldly. Indeed, such a simple truth even Orchid could grasp. Yet Mother refused to voice it. This comes as no surprise. She simply values that brother more. Willing to sacrifice me. She'd rather drag me before that old hag to kneel daily, letting others bully me right before her eyes. How deeply she cherishes me, she would never know. After His Majesty ascended the throne, how painstakingly he purged the harem of consorts from the Empress Dowager's maternal clan. After all, should the Wang family bear a male heir, the current emperor's throne would be anything but secure. She'd never get the chance to know. That very night, the princess caught a chill. She couldn't endure drafts after sleeping, a lingering ailment from childbirth. Yet the maidservant clearly remembered shutting the windows tight. The next morning, they were wide open, letting cold air drift in all night. The princess had no strength left even to curse. Thus, Xiaoyao had no choice but to go alone to Xinang Palace to plead her case. Already seething with anger and reluctance, she overheard the mocking remarks of several noble ladies, their words laced with insinuations about the mother and daughter feigning illness. Provoked by Shi, they naturally came to blows. Only after the commotion reached the Empress Dowager did she manage to cross the threshold into the palace hall. The Empress Dowager did not take her side, demanding Xiaoyao apologize. She had never endured such humiliation. Her emotions amplified. She too began to suspect her mother was feigning illness, deepening her sense of injustice. That nameless, smoldering anger finally erupted when the noble lady, looking for a fight, splashed the apology tea all over her. She smashed the teacup to the floor. Before the Empress Dowager could utter "How dare you!" Xiaoyao declared, "Your Highness, I know you're angry with me. It's because I've shamed your great-nephew. But matters of the heart, how could I possibly control them? How about this? Our family ruined one of your matches, so we'll compensate you with another. You still have several niece-granddaughters, don't you? Just marry them off to my uncle." Could such a naive fool truly exist? The Empress Dowager's anger melted into delight. She suppressed the corners of her mouth, finding herself reluctant to scold her. Instead, she affectionately took Xiaoyao's hand and slipped a jade bracelet onto her wrist. In that moment, she resembled a kind-hearted elder. "Is this your own idea? Or did Zhaohua suggest it?" She helped adjust Xiaoyao's hairpin. "Yao, my dear girl, you must have suffered these past days. You should understand, this Empress Dowager has no children of her own. Only 2 elder brothers. Naturally, I favor the children of my maternal family. At my age, my only wish is to see them find good matches. You wouldn't hide a broken arm from your own kin. Do you know how many young ladies of the Wang family have long harbored affection for His Majesty? One even fell ill with lovesickness, wasting away until she was barely recognizable." The Empress Dowager lowered her eyes, her expression sorrowful. "Alas, the Emperor harbors many reservations. He always says he regards me as his own mother, so he sees those girls only as kin and refuses to give his consent. Yao, you two have known the pain of unrequited love. Could you lend them a hand? I think if your mother, Zhaohua, were to intervene." That day, the black-hearted quilt floated on air, guided by the old fox. When she heard the princess was bedridden, the Empress Dowager's lips curled upward. Upon learning Xiaoyao volunteered to steal her mother's insignia, her smile deepened. By the time the princess's seal was affixed to the imperial decree for the new consort, the Empress Dowager's laughter could no longer be contained. She personally escorted Xiaoyao 10 li and rewarded her with 2 boxes of precious jewels. Xiaoyao still didn't understand. Amidst the raging conflict between the emperor's and empress's factions, what kind of bombshell had she just dropped? That very night, several new beauties entered the emperor's palace quarters, delicate and supple, fair-skinned and voluptuous, each possessing her own unique charm. Without exception, they all bore the surname Wang. They all had intricate connections to the Xinang Palace. Imperial law of the Zhaogua Kingdom granted imperial princesses the right to replenish the emperor's harem when he had few heirs. Zhaohua had been sent before, a move to secure her own confidant. Alas, this time she was merely sewing a wedding gown for another. By the time His Majesty realized, it was too late. 3 days later, 2 imperial edicts emerged from Qinqing Palace, one elevating consort Wang to the rank of imperial consort, the other stripping Princess Zhaohua of her title. This meant she no longer held the privileges of an imperial decree. She wasn't even worthy of her own name. Reduced to Xiaoli, a woman clinging to a man, she was no different from the countless housewives of the Zhao Kingdom. forced to draw her glory solely from her husband's family. What a pity! Xiali was too gravely ill to rise from her bed. Even the imperial edict was received by Xia Yao on her behalf. Thus, she missed her final chance to turn the tables. Xia Yao had sensed something amiss. After receiving the decree of demotion, she drifted in a daze for some time. Yet, arrogant and naive, she vented her fury on Shiji, berating her for speaking out of turn and reminding her she could receive the edict on her behalf. Shiji, her face bearing the imprint of a slap and eyes brimming with tears, could only kowtow. Please don't be angry, miss. It's all this servant's fault. But that was an imperial edict. Refusing it is treason punishable by death. With the marquis absent and the lady gravely ill, you are the sole master of this household. I truly didn't know what else to do. Guessing her expression softened, Shiji continued to reassure her. Truthfully, it wouldn't matter if you accepted it. After all, even 3-year-olds in the streets know how much the emperor cherishes the princess. He dotes on her like the apple of his eye. How could he truly disown her? It's likely just sibling bickering. Once the lady awakens, a little coaxing will smooth things over. Is that so? Xia Yao believed it, quickly putting the matter out of her mind. Li Zhaohua awoke the next day. Upon hearing the imperial edict, her weakened body swayed. When she learned Xia Yao had already accepted the decree, she coughed up a mouthful of blood. In an instant, the snow-white brocade was stained crimson. Supported by 2 servants, she made her way to the palace, only to be driven away by the gate guards like a stray dog. Even her trusted confidant's whispered counsel couldn't soften the emperor's heart. Her imperial brother was truly disappointed. So the first thing she did upon returning home was slap Xia Yao several times. Look at what you've done. Stealing my seal to conspire with outsiders against our own family. Even a pig wouldn't be this stupid. Smack! Smack! The sharp, relentless slaps echoed without pause. Xia Yao's fury boiled over. Her hairpin sliced her cheek, blood beads rolling down as she wept. Hair disheveled. Hit me! Hit me! What else can you do besides beat and curse me? Come on! Hit me here! If you've got the guts. Kill me! You've already caused the deaths of so many through your hands, what's one more? It's just a pity you've been stripped of your title, while I still hold my 4th rank. If it comes to it, we'll both go down together. Kill me, and tomorrow you'll pay with your life. Xia Yao, you're mad. Who taught you to speak like this? I am mad for a long time now. Xia Yao pointed at her, roaring, when you executed Su Sixing right before my eyes. Didn't you think I might not bear it? There's no mother like you in this world. What's this nonsense about outsiders and insiders? The ancients said, in matters of good and evil, life and death, even father and son cannot aid one another. Which of you ever truly considered my feelings? If I don't fight for myself, by having uncle marry the Empress Dowager's great niece, will I be forced to kneel in Sinang Palace until I die? What followed was beyond anyone's expectations. In the heated struggle, Li Zhaohua was shoved by Xia Yao, her head smashing against the table leg. Crimson blood spilled across the floor. Her daughter, her flesh and blood, her hope for the rest of her life, now looked at her as if she were an enemy. As if she wanted to devour her alive. In that moment, blood rushed to her head. She couldn't tell if it was grief or rage, or a chill running down her spine. Li Zhaohua lunged at Xia Yao like a madwoman, pounding her with fists to vent her hatred, cursing her as a beast and saying she should never have given birth to her. As she spoke, tears streamed down her cheeks. Mother and daughter were forever estranged. Alas! I could not witness it. For Xiaxing had rushed back. His daughter had outmaneuvered the emperor, who promptly detained him in official duties at the Hall of Containing Brilliance. By the time he could extricate himself, the matter was settled beyond redemption. Yet he had weathered the storm. He swiftly cut through the chaos, sending Xia to a separate estate and summoning the finest physicians for Zhao Hua. He meticulously unraveled the threads, starting his investigation within the mansion. Within just 3 days, he traced it back to me. A blood-stained torture pillar. A gloomy cell. Even the candle flames seemed to glow with a sinister pallor. When he came to see me, not a single inch of my flesh remained intact. Bamboo splinters still protruded from beneath my fingernails. Blood dripping steadily. The air thick with the cloying stench of blood. I was splashed awake by water. A rattan chair stood before me. Xiaxing seated upon it, idly twirling a branding iron in his hand, one end glowing red-hot. He raised it to my face, holding it mere inches from my eyes. His voice was calm. "You're surprisingly resilient. To have survived this long." Water droplets trickled down my cheek, landing on the branding iron and sizzling as steam rose. The blue smoke swirled around my silhouette. I felt no fear. Letting my eyelashes lower slightly, I smiled softly. "Before meeting your lordship, this servant dares not die." Truthfully, my injuries were far less severe than they appeared. The head of the private prison and I shared a connection. I had spared his sister from the tragedy of being betrothed to the steward's son, a notorious drunkard, gambler, and wife-beater known throughout the household. Only Xiaxing never uncovered that truth. He studied my pitiful state before saying, "I truly underestimated you. Orchid. Or rather, perhaps I should call you Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi. The daughter of a pair of fishermen. Her father also collected pearls. Unwilling to part with them, he was brutally stabbed to death by the Marquis's vicious servants. A pitiful little soul with a story of resilience. Resilient yet ruthless, in just 6 years within the mansion, she managed to throw the entire household into chaos, forcibly creating a mother-daughter feud. I admire ambitious people," he said. Then he set down the branding iron, stepped closer, and gently brushed stray strands of hair from my face, a gesture of tenderness. Blood dripped onto his hand, yet he showed no disgust. Instead, he traced the trail of blood down my neck, gradually applying pressure. He smiled. "You're too clever. Everything you do makes me respect you, even fear you. An illiterate orphan girl, yet you've muddied the imperial court, spinning the most powerful factions of the realm round and round. So, I had to come personally to be satisfied. You know, I grew up in the countryside too. The most important lesson I learned was never to underestimate anyone. As expected, you're better off dying here." Those hands, long, pale, and icy cold. Not a trace of warmth. Just like in my past life. He held me down in the water, leaving no room to struggle. The pain was excruciating, as if my throat bones were being crushed. I couldn't breathe, the veins on my forehead bulging. Before I suffocated, I finally managed to utter a complete sentence. "Xia Zhao isn't your daughter." He suddenly let go. Air rushed in frantically. Those few words seemed to burst out of my bursting lungs, and I coughed up several mouthfuls of blood. It took me a long while to recover. My voice rasped. "After causing such a mess, why didn't I flee? Why did I wait here for you?" "Because I wanted to make a deal with your lordship." Before I could finish, he yanked me up again. The branding iron hovered inches from my face. Xia Zhang's voice was cold. "Enough chatter. Get to the point." "Ji Yin Hua," I rasped. "From the day I entered the estate, I detected its scent on your lordship. This floral fragrance is meant to soothe the spirit, harmless in itself. Yet, in your youth, you were afflicted by the miasma of Lingnan and have taken a single herb, bloodvine root, for years. Few know that when these two substances clash, they can damage the male organ." I spoke the cruelest words in the calmest tone. "Your lordship was never meant to have children in this lifetime." "That's impossible," You may verify this. I understand the lady was a second wife. Did you never suspect? Within half a month of marriage, she bore your child. Yet in the decade that followed, she failed to conceive another. Look at Xia Yao. Does she truly resemble you in appearance? I suspect whoever orchestrated this scheme must have loved you deeply and hated you just as intensely. The bloodvine root is a peculiar treasure. Its sapling requires a daily cup of warm blood to nurture it. Yet once it takes root, it grows wildly like weeds. Moreover, the mother and child roots can only be consumed by one person. Consider this, not even the imperial family possesses them. Yet you've been taking them for so long. And yet, she severed your line of succession. Xiaxing stood perfectly straight. But I saw his hand, hidden beneath his sleeve, trembling ever so slightly. Yes. I deliberately mentioned Song Alan. I know men's flawed nature. Even after finding their scarlet mole, they still yearn for their moonlight. Though I died by his own hand, I never wronged him. And the longer I've been gone, the fainter his memories of my flaws grow. Now he only remembers my virtues, my beauty, my fierce yet yielding nature, my complete devotion to him. Especially after marrying the princess. Zhao Hua kept him under strict watch. She was a woman with terrifyingly strong control issues. Even the dog she assigned him had to be male. Over time, it became suffocating. So he increasingly burned Xiyin flowers in his chambers, the incense I'd said I craved most before dying. I watched quietly, observing the myriad emotions surging through his eyes: regret, sorrow, only to vanish swiftly, replaced by that icy composure once more. The Marquis's household employs many physicians. None of them could discern it. Yet you alone knew? My mother once saved a perfumer. He taught me. I replied. This isn't medicine, it's the art of incense. Xia Xingwei's lips curved upward, yet his eyes held no trace of humor. You speak so freely. Are you not afraid I might kill you right now? I can cure it, I said. Your Excellency, I can cure your affliction, and I alone in all the land can do so. I can give you a child to carry on the Xia family line. Oh, the method is simple. Cultivate another bloodvine root. But this plant is delicate, and the ancient formula for nurturing it has been lost. The perfumer passed it only to me, and he too died long ago. Xiaxing asked, where was this perfumer from? Lingnan, the source of the bloodvine root. Over a decade ago, Song Alan learned incense making there. Xiaxing recalled how the southern border was plagued by miasma, making it difficult for the mountain folk to adorn themselves. His salary was meager indeed. To supplement the household income, I painstakingly mastered a new craft from scratch, all to improve his meals. Alan never failed him. He failed Alan. A deep abyss gathered in his peach blossom eyes. I couldn't discern what flashed through Xiaxing's mind in that instant, but he imperceptibly furrowed his brow. I shall investigate, he declared, immovable as a mountain. If you dare utter a single lie. The branding iron drew closer, the threat palpable in his words. I wisely spoke up. I'll die. He sneered coldly. No. I too will be 10,000 times more agonizing than death. Before entering this Marquis's residence, you surely knew of my methods. If it's false, I have countless ways to make you wish you were dead. Seeing me nod like a chicken, only then did he remove the branding iron and ask, what exactly do you want? I leaned closer, my gaze softening as I told an impeccable story. It turned out my mother hadn't truly died that day. Her final wish was for the real culprit to face justice and to kneel before my father's grave to beg forgiveness. I sighed with feigned distress. Your lordship knows well those wicked servants died drunk. The dead cannot atone. Thus my sole purpose in coming to the capital is to make Lady Xieli kowtow and burn incense at my parents' graves. A princess of the Zhao kingdom rarely kneels. My efforts to strip her of her title stem from this very reason. Yet she remains proud. Under heaven, only your lordship can help me fulfill this wish. Everything I said today was false. But he would believe at least half of it. Truthfully, the kingdom of Zhao places extraordinary importance on filial piety. Take Xia Yao, for instance. Despite her notoriously willful nature, it took the brutal death of Su Sixing, the constant incense burning day and night, and repeated attempts to sow discord, layers upon layers of effort, before she dared utter a harsh word to her mother. Moreover, countless commoners remain unmarried and unemployed for life due to a single word from their parents. My actions are hardly unusual. Fine. I'll help you. Xia Zhang's lips curved into a smile. But you must do one more thing for me. The thing Xia Zhang asked me to do was to kill Xia Yao. This occurred 8 months after my release from prison. I had already cultivated the vine roots daily with drops of my blood. Shortly after Xia Zhang ingested it, his mistress in the capital's suburbs conceived. I glimpsed that woman from afar once, her downcast gaze resembled my own from a past life. The embers of their former affection finally reignited. He lay his ear against her belly, listening to the thumping heartbeat. His cold, stern features softening. Once the pregnancy was stable, Xia Zhang summoned me to his study. Orchid, this marquis has chosen a prime feng shui site for your parents. We will select a date to transfer their remains to the capital. You are a clever person. You know what must be done. Kill Xia Yao. Then, you will see what you desire. After several blood tests to verify kinship, he grew increasingly convinced that Xia Yao was not his daughter. Thus, the paternal affection built solely on blood ties quickly dissipated. Now, with his own flesh and blood on the way, he naturally had to clear away any obstacles. Using my parents' remains as leverage was an open scheme. He wouldn't necessarily spare me. After leaving, I turned back and saw a dead assassin drifting down from the rafters. Kneeling respectfully on the ground, Xia Zhang made a swift, decisive gesture with his hand and said lightly, "Recognize the face? Once she kills the young mistress, kill her. A servant killing her master is a crime punishable by exterminating 3 generations. My poor Yaoer, why must her fate be so bitter? Killing 3 birds with 1 stone. A brilliant strategy. Yet he miscalculated 2 crucial things. First, I never cultivated the vine roots. The crimson staining them was merely chicken blood mixed with a touch of human blood. His concubine would soon chance upon Li Zhaohua. That child was doomed from the start. Second, I would never kill Xia Yao. Not only that, I would guide her toward a clear path. Before heading to the estate, I made preparations. I stripped a prisoner's robe from a corpse and applied layers of makeup before the mirror, purple, then crimson, until I resembled a ghost freshly escaped from hell. It was easy to shake the assassins, leaving them far behind. As night fell, I broke through the window. Blood trickled down my calf, leaving a trail of grim marks. Weak and gasping for breath, I reached out, playing the role of the loyal servant to perfection. "Miss, flee. Someone is trying to kill you." I heard the midwife being tortured in the cell. They said, "You're not the Marquis's daughter at all. You're the illegitimate child of the lady and her lover. The Marquis is furious and wants you dead." When I ran out, I saw the assassin right behind me. "Run. Run now." I starred in it. Shiji chimed in, her voice lowered in perfect coordination. She first soothed Xia Yao, then tiptoed to peek through a door crack. Her face drained of color as she stammered, "Miss, something's terribly wrong. Even the night watchmen are gone." I said, "You've been in the estate for over 8 months. It's one thing that the lady hasn't visited you, but the Marquis hasn't come either." Xia Yao's life during this period had been exceptionally difficult. The world crumbled around her, shifting from everyone fawning over her to avoiding her like a venomous snake. She was effectively under house arrest. Even without incense to guide her, the fear that welled up naturally within her threatened to drive her mad. Instinctively, she sought help from the 2 people she trusted most. I thought father was merely angry with me. But it turns out I'm not his child. Yes, he's always been cold-blooded and heartless. He won't spare me. This stain on his family. What should I do? Orchid? What should I do? Shiji. I coughed up more blood. "Miss, flee. Staying here will kill you. The Marquis can't be trusted now. Nor the princess or the emperor. Only your birth father remains." Shiji urged her to. "Right, miss. Didn't the Empress Dowager give you a jade token? It grants access to the palace. Go seek her help. Tell her you're actually the princess's child by her former husband. She cherishes the Wang family most, she'll surely aid you. In a few words. We'll help her regain her composure. Regaining her composure. Xiaoyao wiped away her tears and sobbed softly. Am I all alone? Shiji. I'm scared. Please come with me. She dared not meet my eyes. Look at her. So considerate. Seeing my severe injuries. She's worried I won't run fast enough and will be a burden. No. Miss. You must go alone. Shiji began undressing. Her voice firm. Miss. I'll stay behind. I'll stall them while you escape disguised as me. Have Sister Orchid help you get ready. Then leave through the back door. Half an hour later. The room was deathly silent. When the delayed assassins finally pushed open the door, 2 bodies lay sprawled on the floor. Xiaoyao's neck was purple and swollen, her hand still clenching a golden hairpin, its tip leaving a bloody trail. I lay curled up in a corner, a gaping wound exposed on the side of my neck. The blood had dried, but it had soaked through half my clothes. A testament to the brutality. The assassin exhaled a faint sigh of relief. He hadn't detected the faint fragrance drifting in through the window, slowly corroding his sinews. As he bent to check my breath, I flicked the dagger hidden in my sleeve, plunging it through his heart. He staggered half a step. Behind him, Xiaoyao suddenly opened her eyes, wrapping a silk cloth around his neck from behind. With the collapse of this towering figure, Shiji and I exchanged a knowing smile. Then we averted our eyes, each returning to our tasks. She hauled 2 bodies from beneath the bed. They were the maidservants attending Zhao Hua. Just this morning, she had feigned sorrow in Xiaoyao's name, bowing her head in apology to Lady Xiaoli. Blood is thicker than water. Though utterly disillusioned and bedridden with illness, Zhao Hua still sent someone to check on them. Meanwhile, I doused the surroundings with lamp oil. I blew on the fire starter, tossed it into the room, and smiled at Shiji beside me. Guess what? Will Xiaojing breathe a sigh of relief when he sees 3 charred corpses? Their features unrecognizable? My foot landed on a piece of scorched wood. It crackled loudly. I pressed my lips together and said calmly, the best way to erase grudges in this world is probably to watch your enemy breathe their last in despair. Come, Shiji. Let's go see the curtain fall. This curtain call began with the reunion of Lady Xiaoli and Lu Nyang. Lu Nyang was that concubine. At that time, Zhao Hua was still recuperating in the mansion. After severing ties with her daughter, the emperor ceased seeing her altogether. Her grief was profound. The 2 people who had filled 2/3 of her emptiness never imagined they would one day become strangers. She inevitably sought warmth from her most beloved husband. At first, Xiaojing felt guilty. After court, he often came to keep her company. Holding a lantern, he would sit by her bedside, lean his shoulder against hers, and personally feed her medicine. Until one day, I told him, Your Lordship, consider this, in this world, only a father might not know who his child is. But a mother could never fail to figure it out. She gave birth a month early, did that not arouse your suspicion? Truthfully, even without my words, Xiaojing's tenderness wouldn't have lasted long. His love for Princess Zhaohua was built solely on power. Now that the princess has been cast aside, he remains firmly entrenched in the Hall of Containment through his own skill, still trusted by His Majesty. Times have changed. I merely gave this fragile relationship, thin as ice, one final push. Lu Nyang is quite the remarkable woman, with facial features bearing 1/3 of the resemblance and mannerisms mimicking 8 parts of the original. She possessed a distinctly different softness, like daughter, docile and harmless. Yet she was adept at reading expressions and seizing opportunities. Swiftly climbing into Xiaojing's bed, When dealing with a man too clever, you must make him believe he controls you. She understood this principle profoundly. Before long, Liunan became pregnant. Xiaixing bought her a courtyard and sent boxes of gold, silver, and jewels to fill it. When one is ill, the mind wanders to all sorts of thoughts. Zhao Hua had her suspicions. Her husband appeared less and less, and if she asked a question, he would turn cold, especially with her sensitive and suspicious nature. But her power had waned considerably. Most of her confidants were dead or scattered, and Xiaixing kept his secrets tightly guarded. Her suspicions remained stuck in her throat, never voiced aloud. Until that day at the temple, praying for blessings. On the way back to the city, a pregnant woman collided with her carriage. Just as she was being helped up, the moment she saw the patterns on the carriage, her face went pale. She turned and ran, not even bothering to pick up the jade hairpin she dropped. Later, she was caught in the bustling marketplace. The woman seized the initiative, kneeling before her. A commoner's death is insignificant, she pleaded, but this womb holds the Marquis's child. I beg you, madam, for the sake of this child, spare my life and grant me a way to live. Zhao Hua, seated upright in the carriage, snapped two of her manicured nails clean off the moment she saw that face so strikingly similar to Song Allen's. Hearing those words, she choked back blood in fury, leapt from the carriage, and raised her whip to strike. You vile creature! You dare provoke me? Does our Marquis's household lack children? Do you think we need yours? Right now, I'll send you and this bastard to meet your end. Lu Nyang curled up on the ground, shielding her belly with her hands. Several lashes tore her flesh open, but that wasn't enough to vent his rage. Zhao Hua lunged for another strike, only to be seized by Xiaixing, who seized the moment to shove him to the ground. Looming over him, have you finished your little show? Making a spectacle for everyone to gawk at? We'll settle this back at the mansion. Of course not. That night, the couple fought fiercely. Harsh words, parting words, twisted words, a basketful of curses and malice hurled at each other. In the end, Zhao Hua sat gasping for breath in a chair, while Xiaixing dropped the bombshell, you know whose child Xiaoyao is. With that, the Marquis's mansion became a powder keg. By dawn, Xiaixing finally stormed out, his body covered in claw marks. Inside, Zhao Hua was even worse off, her cheeks swollen high. She sat collapsed on a pile of broken porcelain, numb to the pain. Then she coughed up a mouthful of blood and fell unconscious. The commotion on the street made Lu Nyang's true identity impossible to conceal. Naturally, she was brought to the Marquis's residence, a proper mistress now. When Zhao Hua awoke, the die had been cast. She couldn't possibly endure it. She erupted again, just like in my past life, consumed by betrayal and rage. Her mind clouded, her body trembling with fury. She grabbed a dagger, intent on stabbing Xiaixing, demanding he die without a proper burial. But Lu Nyang blocked her. As she did, crimson blood appeared beneath her, gushing steadily from between her legs. Zhao Hua burst into laughter. Her face turned skyward. Xiaixing, enraged beyond measure, struck her across the face, knocking her down. He scooped up Lu Nyang and rushed to summon the court physician. And so, amidst the laughter, tears welled up. Zhao Hua reflected, her life had spanned over 30 years. Once she believed herself the happiest woman under heaven, cherished by her doting elder brother, married to a handsome husband, blessed with an obedient daughter. Yet all was lost, as if it had been nothing but a grand dream. Later, she set fire to Huaining Garden. She did not know that within its walls, the roots of a vine had taken hold. She and I clinked our cups beneath the moon. She sang, watch him build his vermilion tower. Watch him host his banquets. Watch his tower collapse. Yes. The great edifice was about to crumble. All of this would come crashing down. 2 blossoms bloomed. Xiaoyao left Xinang Palace 3 months later. The Empress Dowager only told her to wait, without saying what for. Until this day, when she summoned her, the emperor and a group of ministers were also present in the hall. With a worried look, she asked, "Yao Yao, do you miss home?" Xia Yao was about to shake her head, but the Empress Dowager beckoned her closer, placed a hand on her shoulder, and murmured with concern, "You've grown so thin." Then, turning to the others, she said, "I truly cherished this child. Otherwise, I wouldn't have betrothed her to my nephew, the eldest grandson. Alas, it was not meant to be." Wiping her eyes, she continued, "Now she's had a falling out with her parents and stormed off in a huff. Children are fickle, blood ties don't hold grudges overnight. I wish to mediate. Since today is a day of rest, why not visit the Ho family estate together? Surely, no matter how angry the Marquis is, he'll set aside his grievances for the sake of these distinguished ministers. What do you say, Your Majesty?" His Majesty had no desire to go, yet he could not refuse. Moreover, the Empress Dowager's repeated mention of Zhaohua stirred the last remnants of longing within him. After all, habits formed over so many years could not be shed overnight. And so it was. Imperial guards cleared the way as court officials followed. They soon reached the Marquis's residence. The Empress Dowager forbade any announcements, hastening straight toward the main courtyard. From there came wails of grief. The stench of blood seeped through the gauze windows. Inside, a man's voice rang out, cold and menacing, "You wretch! Killing my child wasn't enough, you destroyed my hope. Since that's the case, your blood shall nourish the vine roots anew." That voice. It sounded like the Marquis. The emperor rubbed his ears in disbelief as the matron beside the Empress Dowager pushed open the courtyard gate. Everyone then witnessed the former Princess Zhaohua, bound to the bed frame, barely recognizable as human. Her sleeves were rolled up to her arms, the exposed skin covered in a display of knife/wounds. The matching murder weapon was clutched in the Marquis's hand. At that moment, clang, it fell to the ground. He hastily knelt, kowtowing to plead his case. He claimed the princess had fallen mad, and the bloodletting was part of her treatment. Zhaohua was untied by 2 maids, huddled under her quilt. She took a long time to gather her strength. Pushing everyone away, she staggered into the courtyard, knelt, and performed a proper formal bow. "Your Imperial Majesty, Mother, I implore you to vindicate me." Originally, no matter how Xiaojing tormented her, it could only be considered a domestic matter, cruel, yes, but ultimately a private affair. To drag him down with her, she had to tie it to state affairs. She had been married to Xiaojing for 16 years. After such a long time as husband and wife, she knew every sordid detail of his deeds. Embezzling river repair funds, causing the Yellow River to burst its banks and scattering millions of families, killing innocents to claim military victories, using commoners as scapegoats whenever bandit uprisings overwhelmed the troops, selling official positions and titles, demanding annual bribes in gold and silver from the home mansion to secure promotions and transfers, every transaction clearly priced. Each and every one. Flipping through Xiaojing's record of achievements, each page was drenched in blood, tears, and human sacrifice. "Xiaojing, shut down your operation. I'll sponsor your imperial examinations." She wept. My sister was blinded by passion. By the time she realized, it was too late. She had raised a wolf from Zhongshan who, once powerful, forgot all gratitude. Allowing this villain to continue his schemes would inevitably shake the very foundations of our great Zhao. Only his death can appease the people's fury. It was precisely because my sister uncovered those financial transactions that she was tormented by this beast. Now that the root has been damaged, she knows her days are numbered. She asks not for the emperor or empress to trouble themselves with her treatment, but only to witness this villain being torn limb from limb. Even in death, she would have no regrets. Alas, she would not live to see it. Zhao Hua passed away 2 months later from illness. Her eyes open all night before death, still waiting in agony for Xia Zheng's punishment. Yet, the investigation to clarify and verify those charges took nearly 2 years. The verdict was immediate execution. The night before Xia Zheng was led to the execution ground, I went to see him. After all, we were once husband and wife. There he was, the man who once held sway over the court, bound to the execution frame, reduced to a piece of rotten meat on the chopping block. Your lordship, I said softly, I lied to you. I smiled at him, saying softly, Xia Yao is your daughter, your own flesh and blood. Only, when she was born, Zhao Hua fell ill and could bear no more children. She feared you would reject her, so she hid it from you. Later, when she tried to tell you, you wouldn't believe her. And one more thing. Think carefully. Really think. The series of schemes targeting the Marquis's household all had a central figure. Who was that central figure? It was Prince Wang. Everything began with his marriage proposal to Xia Yao. From the start, I noticed another hand behind the scenes, stirring the pot. Lun Yang was his agent, the blood recognition ritual was his scheme, even the Empress Dowager was incited by him. I wanted the entire Marquis's household dead, he wanted the Wang family to control the court. Thus, our goals converged. Therefore, your defeat is no injustice. I saw Xia Zheng's fingers tremble. His emotions surged violently. Yet he could not speak. I was satisfied. Leaving the Ministry of Justice, Shiji came to meet me. Once, her dream was to return to our hometown with my elder sister and buy a house. Now that vengeance was served, she didn't leave, saying she wished to follow me. The stars shone brightly tonight. Tomorrow would surely be a fine day. We walked away together, oblivious to the carriage parked in the distance, the vibrant orchids and Jinglan flowers, the Wang family crest. A slender, jade-white finger rested lightly on the curtain as a clear, melodious voice spoke, ending with a hint of laughter. Oh, she said that, guessing it was me. Orchid, ginger porcelain, both lovely names. Quite fitting for her. Don't you think? The end.